Hey, it is great to be here, and it has been a good week so far. The sermons this week have been an encouragement to me. Am I on? Yeah, you can hear me? It's been a good week. Hearing Jerry Thorpe on Monday night, he is, like many, one of my favorite preachers to get to listen to. Last night, hearing Larry Lamb, which is someone that I've got to know the last few years and have gleaned a lot of leadership wisdom from him and enjoy spending time with him. And yesterday morning with the three speakers, all of them are friends, and today celebrating missions. It's just been a good week, and I am honored to be able to stand here tonight and get to talk to you for just a few minutes, kind of about the history of the communication of the BBFI. Celebrating 70 years is an incredible accomplishment for our fellowship. I don't take it lightly whatsoever, the privilege that I have to serve you, the pastors, missionaries, church leaders of our fellowship in the role of the senior pastors as communication director. A few people teased me, though, before I was coming up. They said they didn't realize that I had a whole body because all anybody's seen of me the last couple of years is on Zoom from like the chest up, hosting a lot of Zoom calls and doing a lot of meetings that way. A little bit about me before I jump into our fellowship. I grew up in high school. When in high school, I was really good at math and science. My plan was to be an engineer. True story, I hated English. I hated writing. I hated history. I hated all those things. It's part of God's sense of humor. The only benefit of any of that math that I used to like is now I get to help my daughter with math homework. But she's finally at a place that stumped me. Can you put that equation up on the screen? Is that up? So literally this is her homework assignment that she's got to write a 19-page book on how to solve that equation. So I put that up intentionally because I don't know how to, and I'm hoping in a room like this that someone can help me help her, because now I'm a writer and I don't know how to do math. Take the pictures of it. I've tried all the cheating map websites where you can take a picture of it with your phone and it'll answer it. None of them know how to do it. So over the last several years, I don't know if it's because getting older or because of the position I've been in, I have grown to love to write, and I've loved studying history. It drives my kids crazy because what's on the TV at my home all the time are documentaries and the History Channel, learning history. And I love it. And I sometimes find myself today, now, in the Tribune archive area. We've got a couple closets or rooms where we just got drawer after drawer after drawer of every magazine that's ever been, or newspaper that's ever been printed by the Tribune, and all kinds of other artifacts that we found. I started digging through things. I don't know. I'm trusting Dr. Dell and Dr. Combs, because I've got in my office, I found it, a brick from the Texas hotel. I don't know if it's legitimate or not. It's out in the lobby. If we know anybody that can do forensics on it, we can chip off a little bit. I was afraid when I put it out there that people would start chipping off parts of it. They wanted to take it with them as a souvenir. I found in 1951 a homework assignment from Dr. Eli Haryu when he was a student at BBC. His homework assignment was an English class. There were about 10 papers on your first impression of BBC, and he writes eloquently on what it looked like when he rolled onto the property here in Springfield, Missouri. This is true, I found a letter from the U.S. military to Noel Smith, where he had requested information about UFOs in Area 51. And they actually responded to him. So I can't tell you what I know, though. It's confidential. I can't tell you what they said. So, in my searching around, I found a few other things that were really interesting. I found lots of audio, CDs, tapes, cassettes, and some videos of some of our founders that were preaching. So we're going to do something real quick. We're going to play a little game tonight. Everybody want to play a game? We're going to play a game where I got no prizes to give you. So we're going to play Name That Tune, except instead of a tune, I want to play Name That Preacher. You got it? So some of you I'm expected to do really well. And some of you are going to have a clue who these people are. So we got several that I want to give you. The first one, I'll give you a clue. It's not a preacher, but I found this and had to play it for us tonight. When you know it, shout it out as loud as you can who this is. I can't hear you. They know it. Doc Boland. Doc Boland. That was such a classic song that he would lead us in, singing every time. Here's a few preachers, okay? When you recognize the voice, I can't hear you very well, so shout out real loud who this is preaching. Let's go to the second one.
Turn your Bibles, if you will, please, to the book of Joel in the Old Testament, one of the minor prophets, Joel chapter 3.
Dr. Boonstra.
And I want us to read verse 11 through verse...
Carl Boonstra. All right, let's hear the next one. We'll keep a mission theme. Here's another clue.
We have a heritage. We look around us here this morning and observe these beautiful buildings stretching from one street to another.
Think missions.
We have a heritage.
Fred Donaldson. Fred Donaldson talking about the heritage that we have.
And you.
Oh, we already went to the next one.
You ready?
Who's
You
this?
made preparation. Have
You
you
got it.
accepted Jesus?
Dr. Dow. W. Dow. All right, here's one of my favorites. Let's listen.
I often say that, and I borrow from Noel
Dr.
Smith,
Harp, you listen to
some
him.
of this lingo of his, that you can go to heaven without being a Baptist, but you ought to be a Baptist and go first class.
You got to be first class. I heard him teach that in class. Anybody else hear him teach that in class? Oh, yeah. All right, one more. Here's another one.
By yourself with the leeks and garlics of Egypt. Go up to where there's honey in the
A.V.
rock.
Anderson.
And that's only found at...
Oh, you're cutting them off too quick. Come on, you got to hear A.V. Henderson preach and belting it out. All right, next one. This is a great one. Think missions again.
Wants us to believe him. And without faith, it is impossible to please God. For we must believe him. We must believe him. Oh, today, if
Philippines,
we could only
think
go
Philippines.
back to the
Bob
Bible
Hughes.
and just have simple faith, just to believe.
Bob Hughes.
And then to be able to
Hey, let me tell you this. Let me throw this in. If you want to hear a great sermon, go on YouTube and search I Sat Where They Sat by Bob Hughes. One of the best mission sermons you'll ever hear. And it's on YouTube. You can listen to it. You listen to it, you see a picture of him, but listen to that preach. All right, let's do the next one. This is my generation when I was here.
Do you believe that this book that I hold in my hand
Yeah.
is the divine
Leland Kennedy, you got it.
Word of God?
All right, everyone's going to get this one in the first syllable.
To the book of Hebrews. My topic today, the incomparable Christ. Whom shall we
Dr. Rawlings, you got it.
this person who
Couple
came
more.
2,000
Couple more. We'll do 2 or 3 more.
Isaiah has 12 verses. Here is the way the last verse reads. Therefore I will divide him a portion
Noel
with
Smith.
the great, and he shall divide
Noel
the
Smith.
spoil with the strong.
Did anybody, someone that knew Noel Smith, is that what he sounded like all the time? Yes. Could you imagine sitting in class, he taught at BBC, and listening to him teach like that? All right, you'll know this one. Next one.
well know, it requires more to graduate from the Baptist Bible College than just passing the required courses.
Just listen to Vic for a
We
minute.
believe that you're not worthy of a diploma from this school unless you believe something, unless you have some real convictions to stand by the truths of God's Word. Do you believe?
Do you believe? That was his charge every graduation. One more, last one.
Invite your attention tonight to the book of Hebrews, the 2nd chapter.
R.O. Woodworth.
I have a very solemn question to
R.O.
propose to
Woodworth.
you tonight.
Isn't that just fun?
It's a question I think...
Listen to those guys. How many remember most of those voices? Sometimes I get lost, in my office, just going and finding these things, and I can waste an entire day just listening to these. I wish that we just had unlimited funds, because I got so many big VHS tapes, the giant ones, not the VCR ones, the giant ones, Super VHS and Betamax, and I got they're just closets full of them that we can't watch anymore because we don't have those machines. And one of these days, we're going to figure out how to get all that digitized so we can share it all. The Tribune has been instrumental in our fellowship from the beginning. From Dr. Noel Smith, that was our very first editor, from 1950 to 1974. In those 24 years where he was the editor of the magazine, he printed 1,130 issues of the Tribune. Every week, there was a newspaper come out. Wendell Zimmerman followed him from 74 to 83, and I want to be just like Wendell Zimmerman because he moved the offices of the Tribune from Springfield to Florida. So I'm figuring out how I can work that one in somehow to Jacksonville, Florida. 1984 to 1995, Jim Combs, Dr. Combs, was the editor. Changed it from a newspaper to the magazine format. Also started the Baptist Preacher. Dr. Randall was the editor from 1995 to 2002. And changed it from a print or kind of a newspapery magazine to the gloss that we're used to now. Keith Bassam followed him from 2002 to 2015 and started the digital footprint of the BBFI. And in 2015, I became the communication director, where I was the editor of the Tribune and tried to make everything as digital and online so we can get the word out as much as we possibly can. At the peak, the Tribune publication hit about 30,000 subscribers. And today, we're hitting 30,000 not on a weekly basis, but we're having a reach so much greater than we've ever had before because we're able to get things out in a digital way through social media, through our websites, and so forth. From the very beginning, the Tribune's purpose, you see each of the editors up here. From the very beginning, the purpose of the Tribune, when Noel Smith, at the 1950 meeting in the Texas Hotel, when they started talking about a new fellowship, Noel Smith stood up and said, let's have a magazine or a newspaper, and let's call it the Tribune. And from the beginning, the purpose of our magazine, the Tribune, was to share the good news of what God is doing through the pastors, the churches, the missionaries of the BBFI. And I've said this multiple times, I get a front row seat of seeing what God is doing, and it truly is amazing. What I wanted to do tonight, I've only got a handful of minutes. I wanted to just kind of walk down memories lane with you. All these Tribunes that I have in my office, you may not ever come up to my office and see them. You're welcome to anytime you want. But I started taking some pictures, and I wanted to just show you a handful of headline articles of what's been going on in the fellowship since it started. You see here this headline. I'm holding in my hand right now the very first Baptist Bible Tribune ever printed. This is it right here. June 23rd, 1950. Reasons for the Baptist Bible Fellowship. Separation from the World Fundamental Baptist Missionary Fellowship and the organization of the Baptist Bible Fellowship and the Baptist Bible College. That's the headlines of this. And you've probably seen this. This has been scanned and is posted on our website. What you might not have seen, and I wanted to share just kind of I wanted you to see who we left, when the Texas Hotel event happened. I've heard some people say, well, J. Frank Norris was such a sweet and kind man. Why would anybody have a problem with him? He had such a pastor heart and was compassionate. Go to the next one. I've got also in my hand, from 1950, June 16th, the same week, The Fundamentalist, which was the magazine or the newspaper that Noel Smith wrote before the Tribune. And you see the headline here, this is J. Frank Norris, the greatest sorrow of my life that I trusted a man who turned out to be the worst traitor in my whole ministry. And you got photostatic copy of the whole conspiracy published within. So right here it is. This is the rest of the story right here in The Fundamentalist. Just a couple weeks later, and you can't see all of it. Here's the next one. This was a couple weeks afterwards. The headline is this: some people were confused at first, but now the facts are out. I mean, we're getting serious here. And they're turning as never before and supporting the seminary in Fort Worth with their prayers and money. Things are red hot at the Temple Church. But here's the story. I can't read it all. You can see part of it up there. He goes on, he talks about Pontius Pilate. and how great the character of Pontius Pilate. And then he mentions Judas Iscariot. And then he talks about Nero and what he did in Rome and how he burned down Rome. Then he mentions Benedict Arnold. And then right here in the same breath, he says the worst of all of them is a man named G.B. Vick. If anybody was curious a little bit about J. Frank Norris, that's a little bit about J. Frank Norris. Let me just share a few things really quick. I wanted you to see some of these headlines. July 21st, 1950. Or I'm sorry, September 15th, 1950. The headline, ground broken for Baptist Bible College dormitory. They went to work right away, right here on this property. September 29th, 1950. BBC opens just as they said it would. And if you read the rest of the headline, it says they're having to make adjustments because enrollment is more than they thought it was going to be. So pretty neat. November 3rd, 1950. Reflecting on the first official Baptist Bible Fellowship meeting. It says 300 people here on the right. 300 people from 18 different states attended the very first National Fellowship meeting. And they gave an offering to Baptist Bible College. That sounds good, doesn't it, Mark? One person clapping in the whole room. We got some work to November 3rd, 1950, in the same newspaper, you see right there in the middle is a letter that they just scanned and put in the newspaper from the State of Missouri Department of Education, Division of Public Schools, where they were authorizing that soon Baptist Bible College to begin offering degrees. So it happened right away, and it's all, for the world to see, the fellowship to see in the Tribune. May 25th, 1951, BBC, this is a year later, BBC is approaching its first birthday. And if you ever wonder why BBC came to Springfield, partly because of High Street, mainly because it's 5 states from the Pacific coast, 5 states from the Atlantic coast, 3 states from Canada, and 3 states from the Gulf. So it's about in the middle of the country as you can possibly put it. June 15th, 1951. Here's some great pictures from the very first graduation at the old High Street building, which is where they had their classes the first year. August 31st, 1951. This is pretty interesting. 32 churches of the Baptist Bible Fellowship, and it only says half of them are included in the report, but 32 churches of the Baptist Bible Fellowship report a membership of 32,670. The BBFI was started, and it was a mega church fellowship. If you look at the next page or the next slide, here's a couple numbers. They're up here. Temple Baptist Church had a membership of 13,000 people. You can see it on the far right is the number. Beaver Street Baptist, or High Street, had 4,300 members. Beaver Street in Jacksonville had 3,000. Central Baptist of Tyler had 2,400. It was a fellowship of large, influential churches. October 25th, 1951, BBC enrollment is 216, their second year, from 23 different states. January 25th, 1952. This is interesting. Look at the headline on the far left. This is before a national fellowship meeting in Jacksonville, Florida. There are threats to blow up the building, but the fellowship will still be held. Hey, we ain't scared of anybody, right? There's threats there's bombs, but we're still going to get together. 2 years ago, we had tornadoes going through Springfield, and we're still in here preaching away. That's just who we are, right? February 26th, 1954. College has 51 missionary students. I love this quote. Look at it on the right. Baptist Bible College is the center of world missions. Isn't that cool? June 11th, 1954. This is interesting. This is inside the Tribune, the senior class weddings. So it's listing the senior class weddings. This is interesting. I know she's not here because Pastor Eddie Lyons has has COVID, so he's home, so Cindy's home. But on the far right, Miss Helen Johnston is married to the Reverend Bob Hughes, and it was published in the Tribune. You got to love it, right? So, BBC girls, let me know. Then give me a picture. We'll put it in the magazine. It wasn't a... Never mind, I'm going to say that. I'll stop there. Here's a good one. True story. Tri-State Fellowship meeting held in Milwaukee. Baptist ministers see how beer is made. That's a good fellowship meeting right there, right? Look how intent they're looking up at, I don't know who it is, but they were pretty interested in it. So I'm not making this stuff up. It's in print. May 8th, 1959, Fellowship Week. This is cool. Fellowship Week is broadcast. The meeting here was broadcast in 40 states. 40 states. In addition, broadcast will be on 282 stations. If you go to the next slide, you can kind of see it was put in the Tribune. All the stations across the country where you could turn on your TV and watch the fellowship meeting.
I watched it in the Army in Washington State.
There you go. Rick Blue watched it while I was in the Army in Washington State. I never knew that happened. July 17th, 1959. This was talked about some this morning. This is where Marjorie Browning has announced that she's heading to Brazil. Is that a cool picture? September 16th, 1960. Some of you know this history. Some of you don't. Look at the headline. It says, "We will remain a fellowship." 1959, there was a lot of controversy. I know it's hard to believe. There was some controversy in the fellowship. But this was serious. We were 10 years old and about ready to split already. I know it's in our DNA, but it was happening 10 years in. 1960, they voted to, anybody remember what the debate was? The debate centered around whether or not alien immersion would be allowed. Whose baptism should a church allow? And the debate was, can you still be a member of can you be a BBFI church if you believe that you can accept a baptism from another church, from a non-Baptist church? And the statement says, "We will remain a fellowship," and it says here on the bottom, decides that autonomy and freedom are worth the price. That's what, in 1960, is what stopped the fellowship from becoming a denomination or any top-down control where the local church has autonomy to decide what they're going to do and it stayed a completely voluntary fellowship. Aren't you thankful for that? A couple more. January 20th, 1961, missionary Doug Moore dies in plane crash. First BBFI missionary that passed away. I see his picture all the time up by my office when I go down the hall. He's the first picture that's up there in the Hall of Fame for our missionaries. May 17th, 1968, mission office receipts total more than $2 million for the first time. The sun never sets on us. And there's some of the staff of the mission office. You see John Connor up right there as director. No, he wasn't there. He wasn't there. I'm just joking. May 7th, 1971, the 21st graduation week. And I brought that one up here. I just showed it to Mark a few minutes ago. Here's it's pretty interesting. They list, this is the Tribune, this is the whole list of speakers that's published. That's the detail of the fellowship week. I know you can't see it, but I showed it to Mark, and he we're not doing that. We're tired just after the days that we've got now. It literally went, it didn't break. It went morning, afternoon, evening, all the way through. June 12th, 1970. Yeah, did I go wrong? No, we have 301 missionaries. Our missionary force exceeded 300 for the first time. And if you were here this morning, some of the missionaries, they got the 50-year globe. This is the year when they were approved. I see, because he's the tallest, I see John Barnes sitting right there in the middle. You see John there? John Barnes right in the middle. So we exceeded 300 missionaries for the first time. Then we got a few, things we got to report in the magazine. This is when the fellowship started to make some changes because our founders were passing. January 25th, 1974, Noel Smith passes away. Literally just a few weeks later, March 15th, 1974, or not, March 1st, 1974, Fred Donaldson passes away. March 15th, 1974, they published the speakers for that upcoming May fellowship meeting. Look at this. How'd you like to come to this fellowship meeting today? Well, you got John Rawlings preaching, G.B. Vick preaching, Harold Henniger preaching, and A.V. Henderson preaching. That'd be a good fellowship meeting to go to, wouldn't it? That would be some powerful preaching. October 10th, 1975, G.B. Vick passes away. We did a special memorial tribune just for him. August 6th, 1976, college opens in New York. What's that college now? Boston. It went from New York to Boston Baptist College. I know I'm out of time. Let me just go a couple more. May 1994, the very first global fellowship meeting here on this campus. Who was at that 1994 meeting, that global fellowship meeting? I still get goosebumps when I think about when we sing How Great Thou Art, and everyone sang it in their native tongue. It was just, if you just walked in off the street, you'd have thought people were speaking in tongues, and BBC went charismatic, or we were hosting a CBC meeting, but it was a lot of, I'll never forget it. Then September 1998, the first fellowship meeting ever held outside of the United States. It was held in Quebec. We've had two since then, one in the Philippines and one in Korea, South Korea. It's incredible to just look back and see all that God has done through the BBFI. There's a lot of lessons I can learn. I'm not supposed to preach, and I'm not going to preach. But there's a lot of lessons that you can learn just looking back over it. Our work is spiritual, and there's going to be opposition. There's going to be struggles. Everything rises and falls on leadership. You learn about the importance of preaching the word, the importance of worldwide missions, the importance of the local church and church planting, the importance of education. But if I could summarize all of what I took away from my time that I just go into the archive area, it's this. It's on the screen. We're so much better together. We're so much better together. And we can accomplish so much more when we're working together. Let me read 2 or 3 verses. Ecclesiastes 4:9, you know these verses. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. It's good to be able to lock arms with another brother, right? When you come to these meetings, you don't have to sugarcoat how things are going. Lock arms and be strong. Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Have you been sharpened this week? We need this. Hebrews 10:24, and let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works. If you encourage someone, last night's challenge to go encourage someone. If they've been knocked down, left for dead, pick them up and encourage them. I know one thing. Talking to pastors as much as I have the last year and a half, a lot of discouragement. In this meeting, you need to find someone, not for what you can get from them, but what you can give to them. Give them encouragement. Psalm 133, verse 1, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. I didn't show a lot of headlines I could have shown about our problems. The fellowship is as dysfunctional as they come. But every network of churches is. This is just mine. And I want to embrace it. But how much more we can do when we're working together in unity. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. Can I just stop and just pray and thank God for the BBFI? Let's do that. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, as we've set aside this week, and really we started planning this even for last year, to have a time where we could just look back and celebrate all that you've done. I don't know that we do it enough. I know we don't do it enough. But God, we celebrate you. We celebrate your work through the Baptist Bible Fellowship International. The reports that we've heard from the mission office of the churches started, the souls that are saved, talking to pastors and hearing how churches here in the States, many have grown even through this pandemic. God, we thank you. And we thank you that we can accomplish more when we're working together. So God, I thank you for these men and these women that are here, for the men and the women that are watching online, and the men and the women that are scattered around the world that we get to partner together with. God, we love you. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.